I went to FIT for design. I interned in design and spent some time working in the field, and actually fell into design recruiting, something I never knew anything about, but fell into it, and it turned out to be my career. But I've met designers over the years from various countries, from all the schools across Europe and America, and I've been able to see a lot of different books and meet a lot of different types of designers. One big misconception is that mass market retailers want to see a mass market book. Mm-hmm. So everything, being computerized flats and losing a lot of that personality. No matter how mass market the retailer, they still want to be inspired, and they still want to see that somebody's creative. Yeah. So they still want to see a beautiful book. Even at the end of the day, the designer is going to be doing CAD illustrations all day. I think hand sketching is extremely important. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to have the computer as a background, mm-hmm. A skill that you have that you can fall back on, but hand sketching is still very important. For the retailer that I work for today, our designers still do flats by hand. The flats that go with the tech packs to Asia for production are still done by hand, and we think that that gives the garment more life.
From a job search point of view, what is the role of the sketchbook?
It's super important in my perspective. I actually talk to my design team about this a lot when we're interviewing design candidates, and they want to see a sketchbook as well. A portfolio is something that you can do and spend as much time or as little time as you want, but you have that window to perfect it. And so it can be it's very important, but you never know how organic it is. Is it really showing you the person's thought process? Whereas a sketchbook is much more organic. It's really letting you peek inside their head and see how they think, see where they get inspiration from. So I like to look at a portfolio. I like to see a finished product. How do you interpret what your concept is into a finished collection? Right. But I also love to see that sketchbook, and where did you get started, and how did you get inspired, and what was your thought process up until you got to that finished product. So I like to see both. I love to see people who think really outside the box, who are pulling from a lot of different genres for inspiration, people who like to include materials in their sketchbooks. Sometimes the messier the sketchbook, the better, because you can really get involved in it. You can touch things. Personally, I'm so excited by that, because amazing books are few and far between. Almost all of our designers, if they come in with a beautiful sketchbook and a great portfolio, we will still give them a project. And it's what is your lens on our brands? And what would you bring to the table for our brands? How would you bring newness and interpret what you see as your vision for us? And so that project really helps us see if they understand what we need from them.
What would you advise a student who's coming out of school and needs a first job? What would you advise them as far as preparing for an interview?
To be willing to, look at things that they didn't know I fell into design recruiting, and I thought I was going to be a designer, and I still get to work with designers every day and work with product and work with, amazingly creative people. So being very open, trying maybe technical design or product development to get their foot in the door. So getting your foot in the door with the right organization that's going to really allow you to grow. So being flexible to that.
And as far as interning goes, I know that I always advise students to try to get an internship with a company that they would want to work for.
So we do try to actually hire a number of those interns into the organization. They're already proven entities. We know them, they're a cultural fit, we know they work hard, we know they have a passion, we know they have talent. So primarily almost all of our entry-level roles are filled by interns in all areas of the business, not just design. Menswear, you really learn tailoring. And to be able to have that refined, tailored knowledge and aesthetic and bring that into women's wear, eventually, if that's what you decide to do, is actually an asset.
So you think that there's the opportunity to go back into another really different specialization in fashion?
I've seen a lot. I think it depends on the person. I've seen a lot of resumes where people have done a lot of different things, and that's absolutely an asset. And we value that. I would say one of our vice presidents of design was in children's wear. And now she's a vice president of an enormous women's brand. So if the person knows how to navigate the waters and is open to pushing forward and making changes in their career and does so from a personally strategic perspective, it's absolutely possible. Our summer interns just started, and quite a few of them have said they've learned more in the past 2 weeks, just because they're on the job. And they're really doing things. They're in fittings. They're actually working, with cross-functional teams. They're working with everyone that comes together to produce the garments that they may have just conceptualized. Now they're working with a technical team, a production team, a sourcing team, a fabric team, a merchandising team who's going to say, I like it, but it's not going to sell, or I need something different so that I can buy it to sell in the stores.
What elements should be included in a successful sketchbook?
So a lot of ideas, tears from things that are not just fashion, anything that inspires you. Pieces of art that you've gone to a recent exhibition and you have the card from the museum. Anything that inspires you, I love to see. Even doodles on a cocktail napkin while you're waiting to meet a friend and you had an idea of a silhouette. Putting those in your sketchbook, as well as materials, little swatches of different options and things you're thinking of pinned in or taped down. And then sketches. Seeing your free organic hand, I think, is really important. Even if they're doodles, even if they're not detailed, love to see that. In a portfolio, you're really taking a lot of that away and refining it to a very formal presentation. Whereas in a sketchbook, it's your time to really just let your thoughts sort of flow freely and just ideas and have different ideas come out. And I remember from keeping my own sketchbook, I would start somewhere and through that process end up somewhere else by the end. And that's the way you come to new ideas and start getting your brain thinking and redeveloping and reworking something. You really get to a place you didn't within that book.
Yes, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Yes,
I love
definitely.
It. What advice would you offer to students regarding the resume protocol?
First and foremost, they're going to look at your resume.
Yes.
And so, especially in design, it's incredibly important that there's some sort of creative element to it. I would go as far as saying, don't have sketches on the resume, but it should be graphically appealing. So even if you're in design school, have a graphic designer friend help you with your resume format. The last thing you want to have is a very business looking resume. So just interesting fonts, keep it clean, keep it fresh, but just something that says, I'm definitely more of a creative. Yes. I'm not interviewing for a financial role. I would attach artwork in a PDF and just have images, even from your sketchbook would be great. Some inspirational images, some flat sketches, and some hand illustrations of full figures. 5 to 10, 5 to 8, something like that gives a good representation. And then the resume needs to be incredibly succinct. I think no more than one page is really important at that level.
Which is sometimes hard to do.
It is hard to do, it is. Or, sometimes people are pretty intimidated and say, I don't have enough to put on my resume. Education first and foremost. And if you haven't graduated yet and you're looking for an internship, put your anticipated graduation date, because we always like to look for that as well. Okay. Your major, and GPA is not necessary in the creative fields, but you can put it if it really stands out. Really, I look for, where have you been? How long have you been there? At this level, it's not as important, but once you get into your career, if I see that you've changed jobs every year or two, it's not that exciting to me. It makes me a bit nervous, actually. I get a lot of thank you emails, but when they're followed up with a handwritten note that says something, and those candidates really stand out. Intern in a lot of different areas. Make those connections. Those relationships that you make in the industry are going to be the people that help you with your career throughout your life. You're going to, call on them over the years. You're going to work together. So really get as many experiences while you're in school as you possibly can, and then leverage those relationships when you get out of school. It's, it's probably going to be an internship that turns into your first opportunity, but it could be people that you interned for a few years ago. It could be people that they know, and they know that one of their friends in the industry is looking for someone, even though they don't have an opportunity at this exact moment. So those relationships are of utmost importance. I try to give as honest feedback as I possibly can without crossing a line. You're not always going to get feedback, and that is very hard.
Can you ask for it?
You absolutely can, but I think ultimately you're going to have to be okay knowing that you might not know every reason, but knowing that if you didn't get that job or that opportunity, there's probably a reason why, and you need to go back and just practice. It might not have been a fit on both parts. It might not have been the right opportunity for you. And I think it's best to really just, try and stay positive and push on.